Okay, this video is Internist conversation number 28. I have a playlist of all these internist conversations if you want to see them. So the intern says to me, he says, Pete, you fucked up. I said, why do you say that? He says, because you made a book review about Dr. Day's book and you missed her joke about the Nobel Prize winner. She pointed out in the last 100 years that only 2 of the medicine Nobel Prizes did anything that actually really helps people. And that's the discoveries of vitamin C and vitamin B12. And I said, yeah, you're right. I should have talked about that. And he said, yeah. And she points out that vitamin C and B12, they both come from God. So the humans really haven't done anything to improve on God's creation. And Dr. Day also pointed out that some of the Nobel Prizes were stuff that actually hurts people, like DDT and lobotomy. Me. Oh, that's good. A Nobel Prize for doing lobotomies, cutting out people's brains. At least nowadays, they don't have to cut open people's skulls. They can just give them a lobotomy with psychiatric medications, especially those antipsychotics. They cause lobotomy very rapidly. I've seen people, and I've read about people who, they're smoking marijuana, they have a schizophrenic breakdown, the psychiatrist treat them with antipsychotic drugs, and they get a lobotomy. That's much more common than is widely recognized. If you go to the YouTube channel of Dr. Joseph, he's got videos about that. It's Joseph, he's like a psychiatrist guy. And I said, nowadays, they don't even need to give them drugs. Just send them to the public schools and people lose their brain capacity. Internist. This low-fat diet, vegan diet, is by far the most powerful thing in all of medicine. It cures obesity, hypertension, diabetes, coronary artery disease, and it lowers the risk of cancer, and it also cures autoimmune disease. And I said, yeah. And so the question becomes, well, why does it do so many things? How could it possibly do so many things? And the answer is because it's the species-specific diet for humans. It's the optimal diet for human health. Internist, yeah. And it's been known a long time in a sense. I mean, since the Bible, Genesis 1:29, then God said, behold, I have given you every plant, it shall be food for you. Me, yeah. And I think the SAD diet is in part sort of like eugenics. The average poor person, they eat the SAD diet so they get fat and sick at a young age and, so they can be recycled sooner. And then the typical person like with a college degree or advanced degree, stupid, eats the paleo keto diet so they have really crappy outcomes. The ones with a little bit of motivation, a little smarter, but still lazy, they get tricked into the Mediterranean diet by the high-fat phonies. So it's a high-fat diet, so they really don't do much better. Actual low-fat vegans are quite rare. They're the health aristocrats. They're the ones that keep their brains, up into their 70s and 80s. Everybody else, after 60 years of age, practically is fat, sick, and stupid, if not sooner, in their 50s. Internist. Oh, yeah, and I liked your video about that Mark Lintern guy, the one you say wrote the best book on cancer. You only did the beginning of it. Are you going to finish that? Me. Yeah, I'm going through the book page by page. That book review will probably have about 20 parts. Internist. I think it's funny that the best book on cancer was written by some guy with a graphic design career degree or something, and he's got zero experience with medicine or cancer. Me, yeah. Yeah, it's funny, but it's the same old story. The best books are written by amateurs, people who actually care about the subject. The guy himself was afraid he's going to die of cancer. His girlfriend died of cancer, so he's scared, and he just devoted all his time for 10 years studying cancer. And I said the so-called cancer researchers at all the big universities, they're practicing science with the letter S that's got a $sign through it, And, they just want to just win the lottery, discover a drug they can sell for money. They don't give a rat's ass about doing anything useful. 85% of their research is not reproducible. Remember what the guy's book said. He said one study shows 80% is not, another one shows 89. So it's about 85% of cancer research is fake. It's not reproducible. What a joke. These cancer researchers, since, Nixon declared war on cancer in 1972, they've been giving them over $500 billion, and they've done almost nothing in the last 55 years. But they keep asking for more money with their pink ribbons and all that bullshit. You could give those assholes another $500 billion, and they will never discover anything useful. Internist, yes. And all this time, they will never run a clinical trial where one cohort is treated with the low-fat vegan diet. Me, yeah, of course not, because the low-fat vegan diet with no oil would win, and they don't want to ever have to answer to that.